Howdy everybody, and welcome to another Agency Overdrive lecture. In this lecture, I want to talk about and show you the build and the strategy behind a Facebook dynamic creative campaign. And I think this is a very important lecture to talk about and to focus on, especially if you're interested or you're working on Facebook advertising and Facebook ad campaigns, because there's been this overall shift in the industry over the last couple of years towards more automation. Now, back in the day when I started, there was very little automation, and I didn't start that long ago. We're talking 4 or 5 years. And Google Ads campaigns were primarily, and Facebook ads campaigns, they were primarily driven by manual bidding. Those were the campaigns that performed really well, and you were able to create automation that helped the focus of the manual bidding perform better. So, for example, you'd have the bid to average position script in Google Ads. You might run automated A/B testing campaigns in Facebook ads, but there wasn't as much focus on automated bidding as there is now. And I think it's very important to understand that this shift is a good thing, but it's also a good shift for agencies and freelancers as well. And I'll explain what that means. For a while, I was, and the rest of my team, we were pretty scared to talk to clients about automation. And when we would sign a client would typically ask us, they'd say okay, well, how much automation do you use? Or what sort of automation do you use? Or what type of bidding strategies do you use? And fundamentally, these are questions that are more based around the client's own anxiety, because really the question should be asking was okay, here's the performance that we need. When do you think you're going to get there, and can you get there? Those are really the questions you want to ask. But our answer typically was something like, we are very much into manually understanding the campaigns and manual bidding, and there's a healthy dose of automation that helps our effort. And now we tell clients that no, we're going to be using and testing, target CPA bidding and campaign budget optimizer in Facebook and dynamic creative in Facebook. And it's natural to feel a fear of getting some sort of pushback from clients on that, because okay, well, if you're setting up all this automation, what good are you? So first, let me explain to you how we answer that question now, because that might be interesting to you. What we basically tell our clients is, listen, Google and Facebook and these artificial intelligence systems are going to do a lot better job than any human ever can to determine the exact right bid at the right time, which ad variation should be shown, and all these different data points. But our job is to work on the creative. Our job is to feed the system the best possible data, and that's not easy, right? Writing good ads, designing good ads, figuring out how to incorporate all the principles of persuasion into your copy, into your image assets, into your video, creating the video, testing different audiences, testing different targeting parameters against each other, right? All those different things. And that's where the work has sort of shifted. It used to be that an equal amount of work, or even more work, was put into the individual settings of a campaign, whether it be day parting, scheduling certain times, picking, do you want to advertise to different genders and how much you should pay, and bid adjustments. It's my guess, I guess that bid adjustments are going to go away entirely in Google Ads soon. There is no notice of that, but I think that that's going to happen. It's just my sense of where the industry is going. And when it came to Facebook campaigns, the focus was on all these different combinations of audience targeting and so on and so forth. But now the shift really is most of your work should really be done in creating good ads, giving Google and Facebook the best possible, strongest creative assets that your team could come up with. The most creative, the most interesting, the most appealing, the most psychologically persuasive. That's what you really want to focus on, and that's a big place to focus your skills on. So we're going to cover a couple things in this lecture. We're going to talk about dynamic creative, why that's really important, what it actually is, what it's actually doing. We're going to talk about the pixel a little bit. We'll talk about lookalike audiences a little bit, but the main focus is on choosing the best types of campaign objectives and building a campaign and then duplicating a bunch of different ad sets to test some different targeting. And my company we manage well into the seven figures of Facebook advertising budget. And it's interesting, like I wasn't always the Facebook guy at the company. I was always the Google guy. I was always very much more into learning about Google Ads and testing Google Ads. And I was really the one called on most frequently to try and solve difficult Google Ads, or it was AdWords related questions and problems. And although we were signing a lot of clients that we were advertising for them on Facebook, like I wasn't as involved in that process. So it was only over the last probably 6 months to a year that, well, of course, Facebook wasn't foreign to me. Like I knew how to get around a Facebook campaign. I set up plenty of campaigns and ad sets and video ads and dynamic creative ads for clients in the past, but like it wasn't like my real bread and butter. But over the last 6 months to a year, I've been really focusing on it a lot more. But aside from running and setting up some new campaigns, we have a treasure trove of data to look at. We have all our clients that have been advertising on Facebook. We have millions of dollars of advertising, billions of impressions that we're able to analyze and extract like what we're learning from trends in Facebook's algorithms, what's working, what's not working. On top of that, we also have a Facebook rep that lets us know, different betas that are coming into play and different strategies and best practices from their end, which leads me to one last final point before we dive into actually creating a campaign, and that is working with a basic assumption, right? So there's this natural hesitancy to trust Facebook's bidding algorithms, for example. Like you might know, I want to choose where we should place the ads. I want to choose the maximum amount we should bid, and so on and so forth. Well, that's coming from a sense of distrust. It's coming from this attitude that, well, Facebook just wants to spend your money as much as possible, and Google wants to spend your money as much as possible. Well, that's true. And I've said this many times, like there are certain settings in Google that are really designed for you to just spend extra money, and those should be avoided. But by and large, from an overall company strategy, Facebook wants you to spend as much of your money as possible on their advertising network, but economically they know that that's only going to happen if your advertising is successful. So while that is their end goal is to earn, Facebook's end goal is not to make you as successful as possible. Their end goal is to make themselves as successful as possible. But the way to get there is to make your advertising as successful as possible, right? So that's like the simple economics of it. So if Facebook's hiring the world's best developers to develop really, really powerful AI bidding systems, we should at least try and trust it. We should at least try and work with the assumption that it could be very good, because conceptually, they're able to optimize for many more data points much faster and more effectively than any human being or team of human beings will ever be able to do. So for example, when you have a Facebook campaign, there are these different levers and gears you could mess around with, right? So you could pick your locations, and you should. You could pick your languages. You could pick interests. You could pick in-market segments. You could pick lookalike audiences. You could pick remarketing audiences. You could optimize for conversions, or you could optimize for likes, or you could optimize for engagements, or you could run messenger campaigns. You could do all these things. You could say, I want my ads to only show up on the Facebook newsfeed, but not in Instagram stories, right? You could do all these things. But while you might have a handful of dimensions to play with and to bet on, and you could decide how much you want to bet on any of those combination of any of those dimensions, Facebook has a lot more, right? So they know where people have been. They know what people are buying. They know how much money people are spending. They know the last time somebody bought dog food and where they bought it from, and how long it took them to get home with that dog food in their car, right? So and this is not meant as a scary thing, right? They don't know your name. And this is true. Like it's all these data points are Facebook knows you as a user as an alphanumeric string, and they just associate all these other data points to them. So as a very brief example, let's say I'm running this, we're going to be creating a campaign today for a webinar campaign to get people to sign up for a webinar, which is a pretty common Facebook campaign type. So I hope that this is relevant for a lot of people. Now, my webinar was really running during the daytime hours because I assumed that people will be more likely to watch it then and whatever. But I decided that I would run my campaigns 24 hours. And as long as my conversion tracking is working, as long as I'm feeding Facebook the information when people are registering for the webinar, then that's all I need, right? That's my job. Facebook will decide when is the best time to spend my money based on who's going to register. Facebook knows. My decision was based on a broad generalization, which is probably true. Out of the entire population that I'll be targeting on Facebook, more of those people would be willing to watch a webinar during the 9 to 5 hours, right? But Facebook has the ability to individually bid on impressions at 10 o'clock at night because they might know that this specific person signs up for more webinars at 10 o'clock at night. I can't do that. So I would either have to make a decision that is suboptimal because my own personal decision making with the information I personally have available would be a decision made for the group as opposed to the individual. When you trust the automation systems, you're allowing Facebook to make decisions for the individual and not the group. So I think that's an interesting distinction, and it's a very, very important part of why you want to focus a lot more on automation. The reason why we're going to talk about dynamic creative today is because dynamic creative is the hallmark product that allows Facebook to optimize for that individual while at scale finding the best variations of advertising assets that have the greatest likelihood of working when they show those ads. Now, I want to also just make it clear that I'm not saying that you should stop optimizing campaigns. Your job is to get the ball rolling in the strongest possible way. So the work now shifts towards coming up with good creative, like better video, better images, better copy, and that could keep a whole team busy all day long, right? That's really tough, difficult things. Your job is no longer to say, I want to bid $1 on this bid, 50 cents on this bid, a maximum of 30 cents for this placement. I don't want to show in Instagram stories, unless there's some very, very specific reason why you can't show in Instagram stories or whatever it is. But you don't want to be limiting based on generalizations anymore. So you want to start off with okay, there's nothing wrong with picking lookalike audiences because that's feeding the system very good information. There's nothing wrong with starting off with, this interest category. And we're going to do that. We're going to test those. And that's why you test multiple ad sets. So without any further delay, let us jump into Facebook. And we're going to start poking around and building out a campaign. So most of you are familiar with the Facebook ads dashboard. Here I am. This is ad sets for one campaign. I'm not going to give an overview of the Facebook ads dashboard here. I'm hoping a lot of the navigation throughout the dashboard will be familiar to you. And we're going to go and create a new campaign. This is going to be a similar campaign to a campaign that I'm currently running, but I want to build it from scratch because that'll give the best educational value, building it from scratch. But of course, you could always easily duplicate a campaign. So from the campaigns tab, I'm going to create a campaign. And here we are in this very, to me personally, overwhelming overview of what we're going to be doing here. And I think that Facebook's advertising back-end system is way too complex and way too overwhelming or way more overwhelming than it has to be. So just for example here. So just over here, I could choose an auction system or a reach and frequency system, and that just filters out the potential different types of marketing objectives that are available to me. So the auction canopy or the auction broader category has the most available amounts of options. So 99% of you are going to use two of these types of campaigns. So it's either messages, where you're sending people who click an ad to Facebook Messenger, or conversions, right? You want to optimize for conversions, or catalog sales. But really, conversions, and there's a lot of overlap here because a sale of a product could also be a conversion. Lead gen could also be a conversion, right? So there's and what in the world does consideration mean? They want to it's just so complex. Brand awareness, right? You're not Geico, so you're not looking to spend money indefinitely without seeing any real results. Reach is this type of thing where Google will just optimize for the most Facebook rather is going to optimize your campaigns to spend your budget on the most amount of impressions, regardless of if they're showing it to people who will take a meaningful action, regardless of whether or not your ads will be shown to people that will actually convert. Engagement, traffic, video views, these are all like very secondary optimization strategies that like I said, 99% of you are not interested in doing. And then of course there are people that have apps that if your main objective is to install an app, you would use an app install campaign. But again, you're really going to focus on conversions and messages. So in this